Hello, everyone. We're talking with a friend of mine. This is Bobbie Kirkhart, and she is an atheist activist. Has been behind a lot of the events that I've attended in the last several years, and she has, interestingly enough, taken her entire family to the bottom of the planet for an educational vacation. Bobbie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Aaron?
It's all right. It's all right. I see that you've got your assembled family here. Everybody,
Yes.
Everybody on camera right now has been to Antarctica. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
All of you have my envy enormously. All right, so I'm just going to let you guys to do most of the talking. I will interject a couple of silly things. So I wanted to know, first of all, when you go to Antarctica, how did you know? Because all the flat earthers say that it is impossible to go to to Antarctica. Because how did you get past the armada of all the ships that are supposed to stop people from getting there?
We'll see.
well, we dumped the,
All right, did you see
we
the
dumped
ice
the
wall?
fire.
We'll see.
We saw a bunch of ice walls.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, well, see if you have the information on your side. Trolls are not that difficult to defeat.
Okay. So who wants to tell me the story of how you guys went down there and what it's like to be on the bottom of the planet?
Well, it starts when I was a small child and became obsessed with penguins.
Okay. And how do you arrange a trip to go to Antarctica?
Carefully.
Yes, carefully and with a lot of money.
Okay, I can imagine. The amusing thing for me is, I have argued with a number of flat earthers who insist that this can't happen. People can't go to Antarctica because Antarctica can't actually exist in the flat Earth scheme. It's, instead of being a continent, it's supposed to be a ring around the world. So how do you know that you actually went to Antarctica and not to, that you weren't like flown to some very remote area of, say, North Dakota or something like that?
Because we weren't
We're on a boat.
Difficult to sail through North
We didn't
Dakota,
use a
I
plane.
guess. All right. So who wants to explain how did you all do this? I know people can look it up online, but I want to hear the personal side. I want to know what
I
it
can do
looked
that.
like.
So first of all, we had to fly ourselves down to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then from there the company that hosted the cruise, they flew us down to Ushuaia, which is a port city, and then we took a boat to Antarctica and also the Falkland Islands and South Georgia, both of which are technically in Britain. So, yeah.
Okay. Bobbie, you want to interject?
Yeah, I think he pretty much had it. What I would advise people who are thinking about going is, if you're going to the peninsula, as we did, if you're doing that because you want to see emperor penguins, at least on our cruise, we didn't see any. They're really not at the part of the peninsula where our boat, and I think most of the boats, go. And there's a big difference in time and money whether you go there or not. So something to consider for people who are thinking about going.
Okay. And Donovan, what was your motivation there?
Yeah, there was.
Okay, we don't.
They made me come.
They made me come.
Basically.
That is mostly true.
I mean,
all right, Christina, how about you?
I actually did get sick the day we were of the landing on the actual peninsula, so I didn't technically step on the actual continent of Antarctica, but it was in the general area that I did do some landings.
Okay. Christina, you went too, right?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to follow this conversation, and things are kind of cutting in and out, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure where we are in this conversation, but I did go.
And Christina froze up.
It was very funny with Monica and Nat, the children. And I had an absolute wonderful time. I was up early in the morning and back in the cabin.
All right, let me ask all of you collectively: are
And
there
there were-
issues with the ozone in Antarctica right now?
We were warned pretty specifically, oh, you have to always wear sunscreen. Everything is there's so much sun because of the ozone layer being so thin. I put on sunscreen one day and didn't seem to need it, and didn't put it on the rest of the time, and for 3 weeks never got a sunburn. So
You were there for 3 weeks.
we were on the boat for just about 3 weeks, yeah, minus about a half a day.
Okay, so how long were you on the were you ever actually on the continent?
I was. Matt and Raphael and Christina and I all did the one continent landing, but most of the landings were on islands.
I was sick the day of.
Islands are easy to land on.
Oh, did I say Donovan instead of Raphael? I meant Raphael.
Okay. So was the goal for everybody to see penguins, or was there another motive?
To say we went.
Yep, mostly it was about the wildlife. As it turned out, the fur seals were just about the most adorable things on Earth.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
One thing the pup fur seals would do is like they would realize, oh, there's a human behind me, and they would want to look at you, but they couldn't really turn around to look at you, so they would like tilt their heads upwards and keep tilting their head upwards until it faced you. So they would be looking at you upside down, and it was extremely cute.
So where are you then when the seals are trying to look at you, Raphael? I mean, are you on a boat? Are you on? Because it sounds like you're swimming with them. When I'm guessing you're not swimming with them.
No, we basically we're on this path that's been pre-marked by the expedition team, which works on the boat. And there's like these little red flags and blue cones, which were topics of interest for the pup seals, because, I mean, they were objects, so the pup seals needed to investigate them.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So you're talking about walking on a path, and you've got seals that are on land now. Is that
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, and anybody want to add to that?
Well, we were told. Oh, sorry, Donovan, go ahead.
Sorry. The baby fur seals were very cute and super relaxed. They wouldn't like be hostile or anything. The adult fur seals, if you got too close, they could suddenly become aggressive, and if you ran, they would chase you. But we had these hiking poles, and if you had one, you were supposed to point it at the fur seal and just stand still, just basically asserting dominance over the seal, and it would leave you alone.
How big is a fur seal in Antarctica?
They look like small bears, except small mermaid bears, basically.
Mermaid bears.
Merbears is what we called them.
Okay, all right. And who wants to throw anything else in on that? Is there any other detail we ought to cover?
We were told to maintain a 5-meter distance from all of the wildlife. We were also told that the wildlife has been advised of this, but does not usually follow it. And this is very true. We would go stay inside the cones and the flags, but sometimes penguins or fur seals or whatever would just kind of wander right up to you. And if they just stood there looking at you, you're supposed to get out of their way because they're trying to tell you that you're in their way.
Okay. Any of you been to like a seal beach, like in La Jolla, for example?
I have, yes.
It's the only time I've ever encountered sea lions that would come up to you or that you could, interact with, and I've seen people getting quite close to them, but we know how small sea lions are. Is that comparable to what we're talking about with the fur seals?
Well, what's funny is that fur seals actually are sea lions. the early explorers and whalers didn't really realize the difference, so they named them fur seals, but they have the ear flaps and they can get up on their haunches. Like we said, they look like bears with fish tails. So, but they're fairly large. I mean, the males were bigger than me.
Okay, gotcha. And Bobbie, what would you suggest on anybody that wants to take a family vacation to Antarctica? What is the ballpark estimate that they're looking at, or what kind of provisions would they need, whatever?
Well, for this trip, for 6 of us, it came just about up to maybe a little past $100,000. That's with all the extras. So there, you can certainly do it cheaper. And you can do it with smaller family, but I'm glad we did. I'm glad everybody was there, including our honorary family member, who did have more trip than the rest of us because she didn't sleep at all. She was always active. So, and I wanted to say the thing I enjoyed most was something I didn't even know for sure existed in real life, and maybe because I was on the boat most of the time. But you've seen the commercial with the seals on the ice floe. I thought that might have been set up, but there were seals on ice floes all around the boat much of the time. And some of them, most of them jumped off before the boat got there. Some of them didn't, but I assume they had a way of surviving. They also swim like dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
See a row of in and out. That was cute.
So do the penguins. They'll be like dive out of the water and then sort of kind of like dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah. Did I say seals? I meant dolphins. I meant penguins in both. Sorry.
Actually, we did
All right.
see some dolphins at one point, I think.
Yes, we did.
Right?
And whales.
We saw lots of humpback whales, and we saw orcas as well.
Mhm.
We were at one point surrounded by a pod of about 80 humpback whales. It was incredible. They just cut the engines and let the boat drift. And everybody was running out on deck with their cameras and binoculars, and everybody, everywhere you looked, everybody just had these silly grins on their faces because it was just such an amazing thing. Everywhere you turned, oh, there's a blow, there's a breach, there's a fluke, and people just loved it.
I have a funny story to tell about that. I had already been brought up to the bridge by the captain because he wanted to show me the bridge for some reason previously. And then everyone was out on deck, and from that deck you could see the bridge. And I looked up at the bridge, I realized, oh hey, that's the captain. And he saw me, he waved for me to come up to the bridge, and since I knew where it was, I basically just ran up there and got some cool footage of humpbacks. I think there were humpbacks. Yeah, humpbacks. Yeah.
Outstanding. All right. Does anybody want to add anything else? Because I only intended to go about 20 minutes of conversation about this. I do have a question before I should have asked. When you said, Bobbie, that was with all the extras, what are the extras?
Well, there were some side trips. Now, we didn't take all of the side trips, but
Okay.
we took them. This was one of the longer trips. There are much shorter trips. And as I said, it's much cheaper if you don't go to the peninsula. And you'll see just almost as many penguins if that's why you're going. And that was the main reason we were going.
Yeah.
So there are, and then there's your own flight. In this case, we flew to Buenos Aires, and then they flew us to the, but it was a fun and worth it if you have the money. And if you don't have the money, I hope you do someday if you really want to do it.
Yeah, I would. It's definitely a bucket list item for me. I've got. I envy all of you. All right, I'm going to let you guys say any whatever closing comments, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording.
There's one particular thing that was probably one of the best parts of the trip for me, which was so we landed on the Falkland Islands and South Georgia as well as Antarctica, right? So on the Falkland Islands, there were rockhopper penguins. And I think that's the only kind of penguin we saw there. And the rockhopper penguins nested with a bird called the black-browed albatross. And so they would have these nesting grounds right next to each other. Photos of cliffs with so many birds on them. And some of them had nesting grounds like in the grass. And imagine like a mid-sized sedan, right? Imagine standing at the front of that sedan, and then at the back of that sedan, nesting ground of albatross and rockhoppers. And we were that close with just a little bit of grass in between, and we just got to saw so much cool stuff like baby rockhoppers walking around, and it was cool.
Outstanding.
Something I would like to add, if you're taking kids on this trip, maybe wait till they're over or they're 15 or over, because there are a bunch of things you can't do unless you're 15, like extra bookings or anything that costs extra, like any excursions that would require either of those things. So there are a few things that I didn't get to do that I might have wanted to, but yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
And I would say this trip was, I mean, it was a vacation, but it was also a lot of work. It's, they tell you on the first day, this is not a luxury cruise, we're going to make you work. And it's true. Every day that we had landings, there were usually 2 of them. You have to get in all your waterproof gear and the muck boots that they issue you, and put on your life jacket and get in the little tiny tender boat and get taken over to the shore, and you usually have to jump off the end of the boat into the water or onto rocks in order to get off of it. It's not sort of a, okay, we're going to do everything for you kind of experience. It's a very much, you have to be engaged in it. You have to be up for doing it yourself.
Yes. And the cabins were very small, at least the non-luxury ones. So getting ready was a huge ordeal for us, because we had a very small cabin about the size of like a single room. I mean, it was a single room, and we were all like tripping over each other trying to get ready so we could go on the landings. It just, yeah, it took a huge amount of energy. You had to think about, do I want to go and see awesome penguins and sea lions and whatever, or do I not have the energy? It took that much work.
all right. Christina, did you have anything to throw in?
Yeah, I wanted to add that what really impressed was dedicated strictly for peace and research. In other words, any countries that visit this continent cannot be there for any kind of military purpose. Treaty called the Antarctic Treaty. So I was really impressed by that. So I felt like I was really on another planet, away from all the turmoil that you're aware of. One of the best parts as well.
Okay. And Bobbie, I'm going to let you close it up.
Oh, well, you know, for me, the most wonderful thing about the trip was that I had my whole family there, including honorary family. And it was just great to be, I've always looked in airports at these big family groups traveling somewhere, and I've been jealous. And I really loved that. I love being there with my grandsons, especially like my grandmother. That's special, but I love being to fulfill a childhood dream of my daughters. And I loved watching Christine up in the morning to do a polar dip and still up at midnight dancing. She had 2 trips, I think, at least. So it was great. And as with everything, every trip I've ever been on, it was mostly about the people, and in this case, the people I'm with.
Outstanding. All right, I'm going to close it up. I want to thank you for sharing the details of your trip. I'm still hugely envious. and it'd be nice. It'd be nice to hear somebody else makes a trip because of this, especially on Raphael's recommendation. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to close it up.